This is the Olympus 12-40 f2.8 kit lens, and it's a kit lens because you often buy it with what was the EM1 and now the OM1, and it comes as part of a kit with that camera. I bought this lens separately, as I did with my EM1 Mark II, and that's because I bought them both used. But this is by far the best lens I've got. That's it, period. It's not quite the sharpest because my 45mm is sharper than this, but this is sharp throughout the range from 12 to 40. Not only is it sharp in the center of the image, but it's also very, very good on the out on the widest parts of the image, on the edges. But it's also f2.8 throughout the range. It goes from 12 to 40, and it's a constant f2.8, which is fabulous. Not only that, but you don't get any purple fringing with this lens throughout the whole range. It's that good. It's fabulous. It also has a really nice manual clutch, as all the pro lenses do for Olympus, and it's weather sealed. You obviously don't get any water splashes in or dust, and it's built very, very well. It's a fantastic lens. Like I say, it's the best lens I own. But in addition to all those wonderful things about this lens, it's also got like you could say a superpower. Perhaps that's a bit too much. It's got an almost hidden feature that never really gets talked about when this lens is described, and it could make or break a purchase that you might be making with this lens. And that is that it's almost a macro lens. Macro lens is a 1:1. This is a 1:1.4 in full frame terms. So it's very, very close to being a macro lens without being a macro lens. So as an example, a macro lens is either a 1:1 or a 2:1. And what that actually means is if you took a picture of something, let's say a bug, and you took a picture of that bug and it's 12mm wide, that bug is, the image you see on through your viewfinder will be exactly the same size image on your sensor for a macro shot. Well, this is 1:1.4. So if there was a 12mm bug, you would expect to see perhaps around a 7mm bug on your sensor. So even though you lose almost half of the image, or the size of the image, compared to most lenses these days, definitely kit lenses, that's fantastic. Not only that, but combine this lens or this macro capability with the minimum focusing distance on this lens, which is about just under 8 inches, or the width of my fingers, 20mm, and you'll see that both of those combined does offer you the ability to get really close to macro images. In addition to all those things, of course, if you are looking to take macro shots with this lens and you've got an EM1 or an OM1, then you can also use focus bracketing. So your camera will bracket the focus on your image to enable you to get the sharpest image from back to front on your subject, just as you would do if you were taking a macro shot. You're close up and you're using a high aperture. So that's how wonderful this lens is. That's one of the hidden secrets that nobody ever talks about, that this lens offers you as an Olympus user or a Lumix user. And it definitely is a game changer, or a deal breaker in my mind when it comes to buying this lens. If you compare this lens as a macro lens to a couple of the other lenses I've got, so for instance the 45mm, which I've already mentioned, that's got a macro equivalent of 1:1 or 1:9. So that means that it would be a 0.11 of the image will be on the back of your sensor. And even worse than that, the 17mm lens that I have is 1:11, so you get a much more smaller image. So that's even less of a macro lens. Comparing this to its rival, which is the 12-35 Lumix lens, and that's a 1:6. So this is over double the magnification as a macro lens than you would get if you bought that Lumix 12-35. And if you're debating whether to get the 12-40 Olympus or the Lumix 12-35, then that could influence your decision. The fact that you'd get a much better chance of getting a macro shot with this than you would do with the Lumix. What I'm going to try to do in this video is find a photo or two where I'm using this lens as a macro lens to show you, to demonstrate to you really just how this works and how well you can take a macro shot with this lens. I'm in this sort of wooded area. I'm in a place called Greetwell Hollow, which sounds like a set off of the Harry Potter film, and it's just to the west of Lincoln. It was a disused quarry, and now they've turned it into a nature area, or it's wilded itself, and it's a lovely place to come and walk your dog and all these things. And yeah, I'll try to find a composition here. It is quite breezy today, so trying to take a macro shot in the wind outdoors will give me quite a challenge, but I'll try and find something interesting, perhaps a bug or a plant or something like that, that's going to be able to demonstrate the qualities of the macro qualities of this lens, and hopefully you'll get a good idea what it's like. As I mentioned, the lens has a minimum focusing distance of 20 centimeters or 7.8 inches, and that's measured from the focal plane of your camera, not the front of your lens. And the focal plane of your camera is where your sensor is, or in the old days where your film was located, and it's marked on the top of your camera somewhere. It gives you a little line, a little roundel that indicates where that focal plane is, and that's the point you measure your minimum focusing distance. The working distance for your lens is the gap between the lens and the subject. So in this case, where I've got these lovely little yellow flowers I'm going to try to take a photo of, my minimum focusing distance is really going to be quite, it's going to be 7.8 inches, 20 centimeters, and the working distance is going to be even closer, right down here. To use bracketing, I go into my menu options, I scroll down to menu 2, I scroll across to bracketing, I scroll across again to turn bracketing on, and then I go up to, or to the bottom, to focus bracketing, and I turn focus bracketing on. So you can also go to various different options in focus bracketing about number of shots you take, number of differential, etc. And that just sets it on. So focus bracketing, focus bracketing is on. So I'm going to turn that on, make sure that's on now, and that's focus and bracketing on. So now all I have to do is focus on my subject where I want it to focus. It will take 8 different shots using slightly different focus points, and from that you should get a image that's focused back to front. So let's have a look at this now. I'll do that on, and it's done its thing, and now it's busy. And once it's completed its combination of those pictures into a JPEG, it will give you the finished result. And that's fine, especially it works if you're going to take a picture of an insect, a caterpillar, or something long, or something you want to get focused from the front to the back. But in this instance, all I'm doing is trying to take a picture of this flower. So what looks like a yellow buttercup, that's all I'm trying to take a picture of. So I don't really need to do focus bracketing here. So what my dilemma is, do I go for f2.8 and blur the background, or do I go for f8 or f11 and try to use the aperture to capture more of the background in focus? So what I'll do in this instance, I'll take both images and I'll show you both. And yeah, as you can see, I'm really close to this flower. I'm really close in. I've got a minimum focusing distance of almost 20 centimeters, and which is just under 8 inches. And I think this is one of the great things about this lens, is that it gives you this ability to take these really close-up shots without being a macro lens. So what I'm going to do is just check that I turn my bracketing off, so I don't do that again. And now I'm going to take a shot. Just take a shot. This thing does move a bit. I'm going to take a shot and just take one on f2.8. That's done. And now I'm going to change the aperture to f8, and I'm just going to reduce the shutter speed because I don't need it that fast. 1/6 of a second. Obviously the flower's moving quite a lot now, so 1/6 of a second isn't going to be ideal, but let's go for it when it's dot, that's it there. So that gives me two different images. We'll have a quick look at those on the back of camera. That's f8, so that's got much more of the background in focus, and that's f2.8. Obviously I prefer the 2.8, but what I'll do, I'll edit both of those pictures in my post-processing, and I'll show you those on the screen in a moment. You can make your mind up. Thank you very much for watching indeed. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if this lens is something that you're considering spending your money on, I hope this video gives you that extra bit of justification to tempt you to go out and spend your money on this lens. If you have enjoyed this video, it would be amazing if you would give it a like. That would be fantastic. And if you enjoy the content I'm trying to create, the photography videos and the reviews, then I would be amazed or very pleased if you would subscribe to the channel. That would make my day. Thank you very much indeed for watching again, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.